Many creators are stuck in small channel hell, even though they're doing the right things. They're working on their titles, their thumbnails, they're improving their hooks, they look good, sound good, and they're consistently posting. So why aren't they getting their blow up moment? The most common advice is to keep going and eventually you'll get there. But if you don't fix this core issue, that's just not going to happen. So what is this issue? Well, let's hear it from the #1 YouTube strategist behind MrBeast and many other elite level creators who bring in over 8 billion views a year, Paddy Galloway.
I can't say it enough. Like, I'll be blue in the face saying this until I think the day I die. Is like, the idea is more important than everything. Now, of course, you can have a great idea. If you don't execute it, it's no longer a great idea. But the idea itself is almost like sets the standard of what this video could become. Is this going to be a 50K view video? Is this going to be a 5 million view video? That idea to begin with is so important.
So have better ideas. Brilliant. Thanks so much, Dan. Yep, totally going to crush it now. Know exactly what to do. Cheers. But seriously, there's more to this than you might think, and we'll hear more from Paddy later as we break down what a good idea actually is, because it's not just the topic, as well as how to come up with them consistently for massive growth. And I know they work because they're the exact steps I took to take my channel from okay results to amazing ones. But before we get to those steps, I have to touch on a common myth about YouTube growth. With many people shouting about consistency, it's easy to form the opinion that if you just keep plodding along, your views will steadily increase and your channel will too. But that's not really how YouTube works for most people. In reality, most people's growth in the early days will come from a single video blowing up. And the same goes for established channels too. On my own channel, Life at Lean, over the last 2 years, over 70% of my views came from just 10 videos. And nearly 20% of those views came from one single video. So yes, while we want to consistently get more views with each video and steadily grow our channels, the reality is that most of our growth will come from a small number of videos blowing up. And this is why focusing more time on coming up with great ideas is so important, because you stand a much higher chance of having that blow up moment and having them consistently. But the next thing to understand is what the idea really is, because most creators approach this in the wrong way. When most people come up with an idea, they'll think in terms of the topic they want to talk about. They'll get wedded to that topic and then they'll move forward with it, possibly even creating the video before working on how it's actually going to be presented. But this is not a good approach, as Paddy explains.
And I get this all the time. I've got this amazing idea. It's going to be so funny. I just can't think of a way to thumbnail it. And I'm like, well, then it's not a good YouTube idea, unfortunately. It needs to tick that box. It needs to be a great idea. It needs to be very clickable. We need to be able to make a clear thumbnail around it. Then after that, like the actual planning of the video as well, before we sit down and shoot it, like what is the intro going to be?
What he's saying is that the idea is a combination of the topic, how you present it to make it interesting, and the title and thumbnail that gets people to click. So the idea isn't the topic, but rather how that topic is framed, both in terms of how it's packaged with the title and thumbnail and how the content leads on from that. And I have first-hand experience of what a massive difference this can make when it's done right, because I remade the same video talking about the exact same topic, but I got vastly better results by framing that topic in a much more interesting way. Okay, so that's what an idea is, but what makes a great idea? Well, there's a few things to think about here. First, some quick gut checks, like do you want to make it? Because just making videos you think will do well that you don't care about is not a good strategy. Then it's can you make it, considering your time and resources? And also, is there evidence to suggest the video could do well, either from your own experience or from what you're seeing from other creators? And to be clear, that doesn't mean only ever doing what's been done before. There should always be room for occasional experimentation, whether that's trying a new angle on a well-trodden topic or trying something completely different if your gut is telling you it could work. From there, you can move onto your one-page idea development, often classed as pre-production. And we'll use a video that's done very well for me recently. So I start with a quick one-sentence outline of what I want the video to be about. Then I move on to brainstorming title ideas that convey that in an enticing way. Usually I'll come up with some myself, and when I have a few, I'll ask ChatGPT to rate them and pick out the best ones, as well as come up with any recommended changes based on what I've provided. And I found that it aligns very well with what I feel the best options are, but occasionally it just helps me find a more succinct way of wording the title too. Ideally, I'll keep titles to under 50 characters to avoid them being cut off on certain devices, but I've had a few videos in the 60 to 70 character range that have done very well. So if I have to, I will go longer. And I always use very simple language that anyone can understand. And this is very important for something we're going to cover later. And once I have some solid title options, I'll move on to thumbnails. And let's hear from Paddy again, because he makes a very important point on this.
For me, like the thumbnail is very kind of open. The whole world of best practices around thumbnails is very open to interpretation. I don't think there's a general, like, this is the only way to make a thumbnail, because it does definitely depend on the audience. The first thing I would say is a thumbnail to me is at least 80, maybe 90% the psychology of the click, and then maybe 10, 20% the actual design of the thumbnail.
What does that mean?
I'll explain. So let's just take the Mark Rober example. So Mark Rober has this thumbnail where he's testing if sharks can smell blood in water. A thumbnail like that doesn't take very long to design. It's pretty easy to actually put that together. It's very natural. It's using natural colors and lighting, but it has a really interesting scenario. You see the shark behind this person with his hands out in front of the camera, and that creates like this really interesting, like, psychological reason to click. You're not clicking because the colors are great. You're clicking because there's a really interesting psychological angle of someone about to get attacked potentially by a shark. What is actually being shown in the thumbnail is so much more important than the design.
I think the first and most important point Paddy makes is that there is no universal best practices. And while you might not like that because you want the step-by-step approach to success with your thumbnails, it should also liberate you because you don't need some perfect high production thumbnail to do very well. The next most important point is that thumbnails and packaging in general is 90% psychology. So rather than thinking, how do I make this thumbnail look good? You should be thinking, how do I create the curiosity and urge to click? And we can see everywhere on YouTube that this can be done very well with very simple designs. So for me and my thumbnails at this point, I know that the best performing thumbnails will almost always have action shots of a motorcycle to get attention, while the text provides the psychology angle. Now, my thumbnails won't always have text, which, as you'll see in a minute, my best performing video didn't have any, but I'll still come up with some potential options. Then I'll quickly draft out what I think the thumbnail will look like. What you're seeing here are the final 3 I used for testing, but initially I'll just throw some ideas together in Canva so I know what I need to make. Then I'll think about how I want to start the video and the key elements I might include. Then I'll move on to listing out the key talking points for the video. My videos are usually an intro followed by a small number of sections and key points, so I'll list them out along with what I feel could be included in each. And this is when I'll lean on AI again. Based on the one sentence idea and the titles I've put together, I'll ask it to suggest some talking points that I've not considered and how they could be fleshed out, just to get my juices flowing for video content. Then finally, after all this, I'll gut check what I've put together so far and come up with 2 or 3 reasons why I think this video will work. And I don't overthink this, I just write what comes off the top of my head. So that's the 1-page idea development, but there's one more crucial guiding concept in my mind while I'm going through all of this, and it's something Paddy calls the CCN framework. We'll get to that in just a sec, but really quickly, if you are trying to grow a successful channel and business so that you can create freedom doing work you love, I would massively appreciate you hitting that subscribe button, because all I do is make content to help you achieve that goal, and I would love to have you along. Okay, let's hear from Paddy again.
But I think the biggest one, the thing I've been leading up to, is just looking at the idea and saying, does this have appeal in a wide percentage of my audience? So if you think about your channel as this big potential pool of viewers, and you can break them up into, like, you know, you got your core viewers, you've got the casuals who kind of dip in, dip out. You've got the new viewers that haven't seen your content before, but are potential good target viewers for your channel. I like to look at an idea and just put it through this sort of like lens of saying, does my core like this? Does it also appeal to a new audience and a casual audience? Because all too often I see people that just pander to the core. And what happens then is you just end up making videos that just get as many views as your core, and you're not really in a good growth stage. And then I see other people that just make videos for new viewers. So they're constantly trying to attract that new audience, and they have no longevity. They have no through line on their channel. They're just jumping around on trends without building any actual clear strategy over the long term. So the core viewers feel neglected. And when I think about the channels that I've gone into and had the most impact, it's always been that case of saying, well, what do our core like? What about what our core like can we make into bigger ideas?
This idea of going broader while still appealing to my core audience was a game changer for me, and it completely turned around my channel and business. In my early years on YouTube, I fell into the trap of just targeting my core audience, which at the time was motorcycle track riders, a very small audience, only ever talking about specific topics in that area. Eventually, I realized that this was putting a ceiling on the channel and business, so I made the decision to make more broadly appealing content while still thinking of my core audience. For instance, with the video we just looked at, I know that most of my core audience watch racing, so I made a video that they liked while also targeting racing fans, which is a much bigger audience. But then I also presented it in a way that would potentially be interesting to people that have never watched racing, but may have an interest in sports athletes in general, opening up an even bigger potential audience. As another example, I still carried on making technique videos, but instead of making them specifically for the track, I presented the idea in a way that appealed to sporty road riders too, and really any motorcycle rider that doesn't want to make this mistake and crash. And finally, my best performing video is a great example of this. This is the one I hinted at that has no text in the thumbnail, relying on the shocking nature of the image to do the heavy lifting. Again, my core audience love this video, as do motorcycle racing fans. But it also hints at a story that would be interesting to so many people outside of the motorcycle racing world. And in fact, I knew I was onto something with this video when my brother, who has zero interest in motorcycles, texted me the day I released it to say it was a fantastic video and it hooked him from start to finish. And if he watched it, I knew that many other non-motorcyclists would too. So, bringing it back, and in the interest of keeping this simple because I don't want to overcomplicate this, I would just ask yourself, for this video I want to make, how can I make it more broadly appealing while still providing massive value to my core audience? That's all I did, and this was before I learned about the CCN framework. So that's the basis of the one-page idea development, and all of this will happen before I write a single word for the script. Now, you've probably got some more questions like how long should you be doing all of this for, and should every video go as broad as possible, and we'll tackle those in a bit. But first, let's look at how to actually find ideas you can develop into great ones. Again, let's not overcomplicate this. The first place is to look at what's currently doing well on YouTube, and this can be videos within your niche or outside of it. I have a list of channels in a similar space to me that I can take inspiration from, but I find it in other places too. You need to build up a bank of channels that becomes your inspiration library, and when you're looking for ideas, just look through those channels and their recent videos to see what's done well, using something like the free vidIQ app to see the outliers. I know there's apps out there that help you find outliers, but honestly, I haven't found them much more effective than just using this method. Another huge source can come from the content you consume. If you're interested in the things you're talking about, you'll be consuming content in that area too, whether that's videos, podcasts, or even books. And I know that many people will say that you need to be a creator and not a consumer, but great content can absolutely get the creative juices flowing. But a key factor here is that you must have a quick way to note down the ideas that you have when they come to you, because no matter how many times you say, oh yeah, I'll remember that, you won't. And finally, learn from the content you've already created and the engagement you get on it. This is going to help you uncover different topics that people are interested in or potential new spins on that same topic. There's really no secrets here. It's just about putting in the work to find inspiration because it very rarely just comes to you. And I'm sure at this point, many of you are now thinking, well, this just feels like a lot of work. Is it really worth it for my channel and my niche? And the answer is yes, absolutely. I get that it's easier to just keep doing what you're doing, and I totally understand the resistance to this approach. To be honest, I knew for quite some time that I could probably do better if I focused on bigger and better ideas to open up bigger audiences, but I just kept going through my routine because it felt easier. But remember, consistently producing videos from mediocre ideas is unlikely to get you the kind of growth that you want. Okay, to finish up, I just want to cover off some key points and questions you likely have to really help you move forward with this. How long should you spend on this? This will come down to the time and resources you have, which is going to be different compared to Paddy's biggest clients. If you're a smaller channel and YouTube isn't all you do, then spending a good few hours on finding your ideas and then a similar amount of time on your one-page idea development for each of your favorite ideas, that's going to be a good starting point. For me, I'll spend a whole day just finding ideas that I want to move forward with, and then usually I'll spend 3 to 4 hours on my one-page idea development. Sometimes it can be less if it's a topic I know well and have good confidence from previous experience, but sometimes if it's a bigger topic or maybe it requires more research, I'll spend a whole day, if not more, developing that idea. Set yourself realistic expectations here. Just try to do better than you have been doing and see where that gets you. If you've never done this before, even just a couple of hours is going to be much better than none. And also don't be too hard on yourself if you don't do this as well as you can sometimes. It happens to me too, particularly if there is a tight timeline. Your one-pager will be fluid. Don't think that your one-page development needs to be perfect before you move forward. As you do move forward into production and writing your script, things can and often will change. It's a fluid process, and even I've changed titles right at the last minute because something came to me while watching the produced video back. There are no guarantees of success. Even after doing all of this, there's still a chance that your video doesn't do well. And no matter how much someone might claim to know the secrets to winning on YouTube, the truth is they really don't know all of them. Otherwise, every single one of their videos would blow up. Ultimately, there will always be an element of unknown and luck. This is the YouTube game. But again, spending more time here will give you a greater chance of having that blow up moment. Not every video you make needs to be huge. Sometimes I'll make videos to lean into smaller audiences because there's a business reason behind it, either because it's a sponsored video or maybe I want to push my own products. So I make targeted videos in those situations and just accept that they're not going to get as many views as the videos that go broader. And finally, the content still matters. Yes, the idea is greater than everything else, but a great idea can still suffer if the execution is poor. You still need great hooks, presentation, and pacing to make great content. But like Paddy said, a great idea presented well will exponentially raise the bar on how that content can perform. So the big takeaway in all of this is to spend significantly more time on ideation, but I know it's not easy. And if you want support on coming up with ideas and growing your channel and business in the right way, I've actually opened a few spots to work with a select few who want to find and create great ideas to massively speed up their channel growth. I'll link that down in the description. But like I said, the content still matters, and there's one key factor that all the best creators have in their content. So in this video here, I break down how the CEO of YouTube himself has revealed how small channels can create better content and win in the age of AI. Outside of that, thank you so much for joining me for this one, and I will see you in the next one. Take care.